Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona, producer Bobby and Vinny helping us out as we get you ready for some great action on Saturday at Del Mar. This is going to be the closeout race on the Pacific Classic card. It's going to go as race number 11, the Grade 2 Del Mar Mile. Let's take a look at the field for this one. Couple important races, I think, but when you're prepping for this, David. You have 3 horses that exit the Eddie Reed, Cabo Spirit, Seal Team, and Almendaris. You have 4 horses who exit the Wicker with King of Gosford, Twirling Point, Artislas, and Freedom's Not Free. They make up the bulk of this field. Then to the outside, you have a horse, El Potente, who's been one of the better horses in this division over the last 2 years or so, 2025, 2026. And it looks like they had a campaign picked out for him in the early part of the year. They gave him some time off and would try to point him for a couple races here that could maybe lead him into the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of the horses to beat, but has his obstacles to overcome. And I think one of the big stories in this race, Gino, is who is not in here, because the Eddie Reed winner, Gold Phoenix, not running in this race. The longtime division leader out west, Formidable Man, he is not entered in this race either. So I think it definitely opens it up to some other horses, and that's why we've got a field of 12.
I think the connections of Formidable Man said they're going to take a shot at the big purses at Kentucky Downs for a little more money coming up next month. So I do think it makes this race a little more wide open. And as you're pointing out, El Potente drawn to the outside. It won't be easy for him. Let's meet this field for the Grade 2 Del Mar Mile. They'll be going that 1 mile, race number 11 on Saturday with $300,000 up for grabs. And Cabo Spirit is a multiple graded stakes winner. He's now put 2 pretty solid races together after a couple poor races in the Pegasus World Cup turf and then in the Kill Row. He almost ran too, he ran too good to lose last time out. He was beat by just a nose, and those 2 horses that you mentioned sandwiched him there. Gold Phoenix won, Formidable Man was 3rd that day. So, I mean, on paper, Cabo Spirit probably doesn't have to face as tough of company as Gold Phoenix and as Formidable Man. He did just get the exact trip he wanted, though, that day. There was not very much other early speed on there. You can look at the fractions. He did not have to go fast. Those were basically ideal circumstances for him, getting out front, not having to deal with those with early pace pressure. So positive. I will give him another positive that the horse he lost to 2 starts back, Gran Oriente, came back and ran pretty well, finishing 2nd in the Grade 1 Arlington Million with a 95 Beyer speed figure next time out. I like this horse, David. I mean, I've played him many times through the years. I don't know if this spot is going to be as kind to him as the last spot, because it just looks like there's a little more speed on paper than that last race had.
Yep, I definitely admire him holding his form into this late stage of his career. And we're taking a look at him just barely losing in the Eddie Reed last time. But, I don't see how the trip he got this day is going to be available to him here, given the presence of the number 10 Flyover, who has turf sprint speed and is going to get to the front if he breaks cleanly in this race. And that's a real problem for Cabo Spirit.
Yeah, Flyover is just quicker. And then, add on top of that, El Potente, who wants to be forward, he can sit close. King of Gosford, they put him on the lead last time out, and that worked out really well for him. You wonder if they try similar circumstances or they want him to be forward in the mix early on. Freedom's Not Free. I think he's going to try to get a little closer because he wasn't able to get towards the front end last time out. So, yeah, I just think it's going to be at least a very honest early pace in here with 3 or 4 horses that are trying to look for position early. I respect Cabo Spirit. I just don't think this is the spot for him. We move to Seal Team. I'm going to keep trying to get to him, David, and I think you are too. One of these days we'll get him home. He's a Grade 2 winner. He's 0 for his last 9, but you can make some cases in a lot of those races where he's moved a little early, or he's a horse who's a little tricky to ride. He certainly has ability. He certainly has talent. And I think he actually fits really well from a class standpoint with this group. There's just a lot of horses that kind of look like him on paper that are capable of winning here and there, but maybe not all that consistent and win time in and time again. Could it be Seal Team's day on Saturday?
Yes, I've been chasing this horse a little bit, and it's been sort of a futile chase because he has not won a race since the end of 2023. So we'll see if he can change that trend here. But like you said, he's faced some of the best horses in this division out west, and he's held his own. I mean, I think getting away from the Formidable Mans and the Gold Phoenixes of the world is going to benefit this horse most of all, because he's been right there at the finish with those horses. And like you said, there have been little things that have maybe cost him, a length or 2 at the wire. I didn't think he got the best trip in the American 3-back. The Shoemaker mile trip was better, and he was right there at the end, just wasn't quite as good as the winner, Formidable Man, that day. And the last time in the Eddie Reed, he's a horse that has that quick burst of speed, and you have to time it just right. And I thought the Joel Rosario made a questionable decision to make a middle move down the backstretch and then try to move again in the stretch. That's not the way this horse is best rated. Turning back to a mile is going to help. And in a race that's supposed to feature plenty of pace, I think just holding him up early and making one run down that short Del Mar stretch might finally work to this horse's strengths.
Yeah, both SEAL Team and Almendaris were a little out of their game in the Eddie Reed because the pace was so slow. They ended up much closer early on
Mhm.
than they like to. And I think that just sort of took them out of their best races because they want to sit back and have that one kind of well timed ride, not necessarily horses that are kind of up close early on. It really dulled SEAL Team late, and especially Elmandaris, who we'll talk about in a minute. Artislas is the next one up, the number 3. It's a grade 3 winner, but his last win was December 2024. Doesn't have a whole lot of racing, though, the last couple years. And I wonder now, stringing some races back together, does he still have some upside and some good races ahead of him as a 4-year-old? He was 3rd in the Wicker behind King of Gosford and Twirling Point. It wasn't a bad effort. I mean, King of Gosford got the lead that day. Artislas made a 3-wide bid at the top of the lane. He was all the way up to second within a length, and he tired. He finished 3rd. Ran like a horse who might have needed the race with not a whole lot of recent racing going on. I actually think he could step forward off of that race, and if he's like continuing his trajectory moving forward, and a lot of these horses, we kind of know who they are. They're sort of at this grade 2 level. I actually think he's kind of an interesting bottom of exotics horse. I don't know if I can make a case for him to win, but if you're looking for an interesting price horse who I think is moving in the right direction and maybe can continue to run in these types of graded stakes races in Southern California for the rest of the year and into next year, he's got some upside, David, and I think he's going to be a pretty big price in here.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm not going to make the argument that too many of the horses are totally out of the mix in here because, like you said, they're pretty evenly matched based on form. Another one that hasn't visited the winner's circle recently, but like you said, he's just 3rd off this long layoff. He was off slowly in that Wicker last time, and maybe that cost him a little bit at the end. He's going to have to run a career best race to hang with these, but like you said, there's some upside here.
Freedom's Not Free is a grade 3 winner down the hill at Santa Anita. That was 2 starts back in the Daytona. He's now going to go 3rd start of the form cycle after a kind of disappointing effort in the Wicker. He had a good start. He backed off inside. He was 4th. He did get shuffled back a little bit, and then he angled out at the top of the lane. He was just outfinished by 2 others who were closing with him that day, Twirling Point and Artislas. He has shown some early speed in a lot of his other prior races. So I wonder if they'll try to get him a little closer in this race, going long. I don't know if he's quite this good. It feels like he would need a career best in here. Can you make a case for Freedom's Not Free?
He did make a pretty impressive late run in that Daytona win coming down the hill 2 back, but unfortunately that late kick was not apparent when he stretched out around the 2 turns in the Wicker, Gino. And to me, that last race around the 2 turns is way more relevant to Saturday's task. So he was a little tough to get behind based on the last performance.
I've got a lot of positive things to say about Detain, except for the price I think that he may be on paper. I just feel like he looks good on paper in a race where the rest of the field looks okay. You kind of know who these horses are. He's a real new face. He's only run twice in the US for Michael McCarthy. You can look at those 2 races. He ran 3rd in his US debut. He looked exactly like a horse who needed that race. He was a little bit short, a little bit flat, and it was his first start in 9 months. Second start off the bench, second start as a 4-year-old. He took a step forward. He got a nice trip. He got a good split late. Things went really well for him. And when you go back and look at his races before coming to the US, horse like Opera Ballo coming out of that race where he was in that group 2, won a group 2, a group 1, and a group 2 in his next 3 starts following that. You see horses like Henri Matisse and Jonquil, multiple graded stakes winners. Henri Matisse, Breeders' Cup winner. Jonquil was a horse who I picked last year in the Breeders' Cup. I think he might still be running in that one, though, David. I mean, when you look at who Detain has faced, like on paper, so much of what he's done looks really, really good. This is going to be a little step up for him. He's going to have to run faster than he's run in his last few races. I'm worried about his price in here because he just looks like a horse that a lot of people are going to gravitate towards.
I would agree with that. And he's a tough one for me, Gino, because I kind of like his European form more than I like his Southern California form. And he's going to get
Totally
bet
agree.
based on the Southern California form. So I feel like I'm kind of, between a rock and a hard place with this horse where I think he can win, but I agree about the price. He feels like a lot of people are going to gravitate to him here. And to my eye, he got a pretty good trip last time. I know he made this early backstretch move, but he made it to get into a perfect spot to split horses at the top of the stretch. And there's nobody behind him in the last race, Gino, that would have any remote chance against this field. So I do feel like it's a pretty significant step up. And I just didn't see the value there personally for me.
No, those horses are all running back earlier on the card, like Charlie's to Blame and War at Sea in an allowance race. Those are allowance
Mhm.
horses. They're not graded stakes type horses. So while he does look good, and I don't have a whole lot of knocks on him, I completely agree with you. Like I love his sixth in the French Guineas behind Henri Matisse. That's a really good effort in a field of 16 where he's only beat a couple lengths that day. Those are the races that were really good. I'm not sure if he's shown that in his U.S. Start so far. Maybe he has it in him. We move to Sinsel, Brazilian runner who is a multiple Group 1 winner in Brazil, but will be making his first start in the U.S. and his first start for Richard Mandela. This is going to be almost an exact year layoff for this horse. You can check out a couple of his workouts on First TV. Okay, he worked inside of a couple others on July the 23rd. He showed slow early and then pushed through from the rail. He did work outside of a Teetlin on August the 6th. Couple stats that are worth mentioning. Richard Mandela over the last 5 years off a trainer switch, not a lot, only 2 for 10. So it's just not something. He doesn't claim a lot of horses. He doesn't have a lot of horses changing or getting a lot of new acquisitions. 0 for the last 5 with first time foreign shippers. Again, not a massive sample size. He does do pretty well though off of the layoffs, like a plus 180 day layoff. That's been something, and he's been around 16% with a positive ROI over the last 5 years, but for the last 11, most recently in the last calendar year for horses off the long layoff. So those are at least some of the relevant statistics. All that being said, I don't know if this horse is good enough to compete. And this would be a massive, massive training job by Richard Mandela to get this horse ready off the long layoff, first time US.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine this race is the goal with this horse. His best races down in Brazil were going a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half. So you got to think this is probably just a prep race to get him started, and they'll target some of the longer stakes races down the line later in the year. It's kind of funny, Gino. I watched a couple of his replays. If you watch the 1-2 back, the Group 1 Brazil in June, his jockey stands up in the irons and starts celebrating with like 50 or 100 yards to go and almost loses the race
Yep.
because he's
And
celebrating way too early. It's kind of a funny replay to watch, but still, from a betting standpoint, this isn't a horse that I could get behind in this race.
you actually see in the PPs, the only one of his PPs that has a comment line says misjudged wire lasted. And that was the race you're talking about. So yeah, if you want to get a laugh and get an idea of who Sinsel is, you can check that race out. We move to Almendaris. He's raced 25 times. I don't think I've ever picked him on top, David, until this time. This is going to be the first time I've got Almendaris on the win end. And I think it's a pretty good just spot for him from a class standpoint. He is not really like a grade 1 caliber horse, and he doesn't have to deal with the Gold Phoenix and Formidable Man, who are kind of the top level horses in this division over the last couple years. He was kind of like SEAL Team in the Eddie Reed. He got caught up a little closer than he normally does. Like he's almost never really close to the front end, and he was second early and then sitting third. I think they're going to get a different trip in here. I think they're going to try to take him back again to the middle, to the back of the pack. They're going to make one late run. His best race in his career, and actually his 2 of his best races in his career, came going 1 mile on the turf at Del Mar. He won the Wicker with a 100 buyer speed figure. He was second in the Del Mar mile last year behind Formidable Man when he ran really well in the Del Mar mile. I think this is the type of trip for him, a mile on this course. He's going to go second start back off of a short little break. I just didn't like his trip last time out. I think this will be a better trip for him. And there's not anyone in here that I look at and I don't think he's good enough to beat. I watch those races with Formidable Man and Gold Phoenix sometimes. I don't know if he's good enough to get by those horses. It seems like he kind of looms up and he can't get there. This just feels like a better race. I think he gets a better trip. He'll probably be a little bit better of a price, David, because he didn't really fire as well last time out. I'm going to give him a shot in here, Almendaris.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I feel like he and SEAL Team have very similar angles to them, Gino. I think we went in separate directions with these two
Yeah.
horses that have similar profiles. But I agree with everything you said. Delmar suits him, a mile suits him. There's pace in this race. He's a contender.
Astronomer, multiple graded stakes placed, but it's now 0 for the last 20 with Astronomer. So we just don't see a lot of wins for this horse. And he's still pretty competitive. A lot of the times he's at this level. I mean, 2 starts back, he was only beat a couple lengths in the race with Grand Orient when Cabo Spirit was in there. You go, 4 races back, he's right there with Almendaris. He's right behind Cabo Spirit in the Seabiscuit. The problem is that you're saying that over and over, right? Like he's consistently behind all of the same rivals he's going to face and maybe even a couple new ones.
Yeah, it's just a horse who's been beaten by some of these too many times to really like in this spot. He has not won a race in over 3 years, and he's been around this level for a long time. He's admirable, but he's a little tough to endorse on the win end.
King of Gosford is a grade 1 winner. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. He ran in this race last year, didn't really fire. And it's kind of taken him a bit to get back to his top form, but he got some class relief last time out. And you can kind of look at all 3 of his races this year. They kind of make sense. In the American, he ran like a horse who needed the race. It was his first start back from August to April. So he was just a little bit short. He was 4th and he wasn't beaten a whole heck of a lot behind Almendaris. I didn't really love his ride in the Shoemaker. It seemed like it was just kind of he was just sort of waiting on him all the time. Never really got asked for run until really, really late. He was just kind of wide. And then he was only beating the length there behind Formidable Man and Almendaris. They got class relief and Rispoli put him on the front end last time out. And he's done that once or twice earlier in his career. He's not like a front running type horse or a need the lead horse, but I think it was actually a smart thing to do, kind of like a drop in class. You wake up call, you put him on the front end. What do you think about King of Gosford? Can he be competitive in this race?
Yeah, we haven't yet seen the morning line. I don't know who's going to be the favorite in this race, but I kind of feel like this horse is supposed to be the favorite. For a lot of the reasons you were highlighting, he's coming off this really good effort that we're taking a look at in the Wicker, where he showed that versatility. He could win on the lead, he can win from off it. So you like that in a race where you're not exactly sure how the pace is going to play out. And I'm pretty much on the same page as you with regard to the Shoemaker. I didn't think it was a terrible trip by any means, but he never saw the rail, 2 to 3 wide. I just thought he finished pretty well in that race, considering where he was on the racetrack, and this distance obviously suits him. I just think he kind of is the horse to beat in this race.
Flyover is the really quick speed horse that could make life difficult for a lot of the other horses who want to go forward in here because he's a total feast or famine. Just looking at his overall record, he's 6 for 12, 6 wins, and he's never hit the board other than those 6 wins. So when he shows up, he fires, he clears the field, he gets the type of trip he wants. He's really dangerous on the front end. When he has to go a little too fast or maybe a little bit too far or work a little too hard early on, well, then he's very vulnerable late. He's now going to go 3rd start of the form cycle. He will have to deal with a pretty tough group here and maybe a little other early speed. But I mean, he definitely looks like the fastest on paper. I
Mhm.
think he should have no problem clearing this field if he wants to, but it's going to be a classy field and he may have some horses pressing him and making him work a little too hard.
Yeah, I really hope he runs here, Gino, because if the connections have second thoughts or he comes out, it turns into a completely different race because
Yep.
this horse in here ensures that the pace is going to be honest. Because you watch his replays, there is no rating this horse. I mean, you
Nope.
watch that 1 mile race in the Crystal Water 2 back. It was all that Antonio Fresu could do to get him to go as slow as 45 and 3.5. This horse wanted to do so much more than that. So he's a horse that just has natural speed. I don't think he's a natural miler. I don't think he's going to be able to slow down enough to get this distance at this level. So I hope he stays in this race because it makes it much more interesting from a pace standpoint. But I don't like him on the win end.
Twirling Point is just 1 for the last 12. And that win came against an optional claiming first level allowance group. So when he's been against Stakes Company, and in particular against Graded Stakes Company, he really hasn't been close. I believe he's never been better than 5th any of the 6 times he's faced Graded Stakes Company. So it's not always just that simple, right? There are excuses in races. There are reasons horses don't run that well. But once you get to a sample size more than like 3 or 4, where he's never even really been competitive against this level, I just think he's a bit overmatched against a group like this, and he has a tough post.
I don't think this horse is totally out of it at a huge price, Gino.
I
I mean,
love that.
It feels like he's improved a little bit since the claim for 50,000 by Blaine Wright. I know he's been huge prices in all these races, and you would say he just has that second place finish in the Wicker to show for it. But let's keep in mind, I mean, the mile distance at Santa Anita, it's not so suitable for a deep closer like this horse. The mile at Del Mar works much better for horses with this running style, and kind of saw it last time in the Wicker, where there wasn't much pace going on up front. It was wired on the front end by King of Gosford, and Twirling Point was the only horse that was really passing rivals at the end of that race. It feels like he's kind of in the best form of his career right now. He's going to get the right kind of pace set up, assuming Flyover stays in this race. And while I didn't pick him on top, he's a horse I'm going to fool around with in trifectas for this race.
I will never discourage you from using a big price like that. Let's round things out with El Potente, multiple grade 3 winner, one of the better milers in SoCal over the last couple years, but he has been off since March now. So we're talking about 5.5 months off to deal with. He does want to be forwardly placed, but he has showed us he does not need the lead. Most recently, he was in the kill row. He was way farther back than normal, though. I mean, no, he can sit off a little bit. So if he was sitting off by a length or two, that's not surprising. But when he was 7 lengths back, that was a little surprising to me because generally he just has never been that far back in any race in his career. He makes this big move up to challenge quickly at the top of the lane. He got pushed out a bit wide, but he was up to take the lead, and he really just got outfinished by Final Boss, who had a little more of a ground-saving trip and got the jump on El Potente that day. On paper, looks like one of the top contenders in here. I mean, he's, I think, a nice measuring stick for a race like this, but being out wide with some other speed in here, he's going to have that off the pace trip because I just don't think he's quicker than Flyover.
Yeah, on form, he's maybe the most accomplished horse in this race, Gino, and one of the favorites. But he's just got so much to overcome. You mentioned the post position and the speed drawn inside of him. Let's also remember he's coming off a layoff. He was entered in the Shoemaker Mile, was a late scratch from that race. I believe it was announced he had a fever, so there was a planned race that he missed in between the Kilrow and this one. So now he's coming off a layoff. He sometimes is a horse that needs a race off a layoff. So I just think there's a little too much working against them to take him at a short price in this race.
Yeah, I think he will be competitive. I could see him being in the mix late, but I think he's going to be a little vulnerable here. So we move to selections for the Del Mar Mile. I really love when cards will have some of their stronger races at the end of the day, and that's what they're doing at Del Mar this week. And they have the Pacific Classic going as race number 10, and then race number 11 as the Del Mar Mile. So you'll get some of those best horses and some of the best form late in the races on Saturday. How are you going to stack them up with your selections here, David?
I'm going to give SEAL Team one more shot in this race. I think he's going to get the right pace set up, the right kind of track configuration at Del Mar, and hopefully Joel Rosario can work out the right trip for him here. But I've got King of Gosford in the mix. I think he's kind of the most likely winner of this race. And I even threw that big bomb, the number 11 Twirling Point, in there for third.
Yeah, I don't have SEAL Team and I didn't have Artislas, but those are horses who I would be fine tossing in pick 4s or pick 5s or some multi-exotics if you're playing like that. It's a really interesting race. I'm going to go with Almendaris on top, hoping he gets that kind of a trip. I think he classes out well with this group without some of the top horses in the division around here. So for David, SEAL Team, 2, 9, 11, 7. For me, Almendaris, 7, 5, 12, 9. We'd always love to hear from you. So like the video, help share it around, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then drop a comment in the comment section below. Let us know how you're playing this race on Saturday at Del Mar.